Oh, should I have sent you?
Hi, thank you so much for joining us today on this week's episode of Leaps and Bounds. I have two wonderful guests with me here today. The first one is Pamela Campbell. Pamela is a youth mentor, and she has done a lot of amazing things. She's an inspirational speaker, life coach, and she has tenacity, hope, and her divine spirit. Her name's Pam, but she's known as PJC because of the way she brings peace, joy, and clarity to the mic. She's passionate about supporting children and adults from the foster care community, and she was born in the Ivory Coast, so she was brought here at a very young age, and she openly shares her experience of surviving a decade of emotional and physical abuse at the hands of her father. At the age of 16, she finally escaped this life of torment and placed herself into the foster care system. She credits this decision with saving her life. And so she shares her story with the hope of inspiring other people who have been through similar experiences. Her experiences motivated her, and it's the driving force in manifesting the person that she is and her vision for a world in which youth and those who come from the foster care community know that they are loved and know that they matter.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here today.
I'm excited.
Yeah, very excited to join me here in the studio. So tell me, Pam, what has driven you towards this transformational type of work that you are doing now? What has that journey been like? It must have been a difficult one of acceptance.
Absolutely, and I think it really started with my childhood, my upbringing. I feel like my father brought his cultural values here to the States, and no one was going to tell him how to raise his child. He was going to do what he wanted to do. And unfortunately, that meant a lot of physical and emotional abuse for me. The abuse started when I was 6 years old. It became so bad and unbearable that I tried to take my life when I was 13 years old. By the time I was 16 and entered high school, I felt like I was dead man walking. Like my father was going to kill me any day. I was just waiting for it.
You were living a life of fear.
I was, and fear is very debilitating. It's really kind of hard to describe at times, the feeling of not knowing why certain things were happening to me as a child into my teenage years.
You start blaming yourself.
Right, like what did I do wrong, or maybe I could get better grades. It's how do I want to say this? It's really confusing, especially for a teenager, anyone that's young, right, to understand why certain things are happening in the household. And you can't help but blame yourself. And I was always blaming myself, trying to figure out, well, what could I do better, or what did I do wrong, or what now?
Right.
But realizing, well, now I realize as an adult, my father did the best that he could with what he had at the time. And so with the abuse that was going on, children's services would come, but nothing was really done until about when I was 16 years old. And I had broken down to one of my math teachers. I told him what was going on, and I begged him not to tell anybody, to keep my secret. And unfortunately, I didn't know that it was the law. Like it was his duty to report it. Right. And so that's how I found myself in the New York foster care system.
At the age of 16?
16, which literally saved my life.
And you have had a wonderful experience from that.
I did. I feel like, unfortunately, the media doesn't shine light on positive stories, but I was very fortunate to have two foster homes. Well, the first one was in Queens. I was there for about a year. The second one, I was placed in a home in Brooklyn. And I had so much love and support. My friends, I feel like to this day, like friends who were around me at that time, they also took a hand in raising me, whether they realized it or not.
No, people stay there, they serve as a grounding force in your life, and it helps shape the person that you become then.
It's like, what is that saying? Like it takes a village? So
no, definitely it does. It takes a lot of, and we realize that the people that are around us can serve in our lives to empower us to take action. And as you said, you were fearful, but you opened yourself up to share your experience, and that then catapulted you into the woman that you are today.
Absolutely.
Someone who is always taking leaps and breaking down your fears.
Absolutely.
As well. And so with all of your experience, your positive experience through the foster care system, during Foster Care Awareness Month, May is Foster Care
Yes.
Awareness Month, you do a lot of mentoring for young people as well against domestic abuse. So tell me a bit about that.
Well, so I sit on the board of Foster Care Unplug, and basically it's a not-for-profit organization that looks to serve teens that are currently in the foster care system with resources, different programs. We have our fashion show coming up in a couple of weeks. This Saturday is the basketball game. It'll be the teens versus the NYPD in Brooklyn.
So you engage young people in different ways so that they are able to feel like a community as well.
Absolutely. I feel like, so I look to share my story any which way that I can provide some type of guidance, or just let them know, like, hey, you know what, I've been in your situation at one point and I was able to come through it. Letting them know that they are not, they're not a victim of their story. Yes, certain things may have occurred, but it didn't happen to them, it happened for them. So kind of using that idea of everything happens for a reason, right? And so
to not focus on the negative part of your story, but
Absolutely.
try to find the strength within yourself, as you did,
Right.
To be able to use your voice, to speak out, to share your story to someone then that can help you out
Absolutely.
in changing your situation and your life as
yes,
well.
but it's not easy, right? So
Yeah,
people
say it's easy to say,
exactly.
but hard to do, yeah.
Because people who've experienced trauma, there's a lot of aspects to trauma, and like I'm still healing, right? And there are people are going to navigate it the best way they know how, right? And so my experience, having been in the foster care system, there is major trust issues, and you don't know who to trust, you don't know which way to go, which way to be led. I was fortunate that I had amazing people around me to kind of just lead me, whether it was professors, teachers,
Right.
even
mentors yourself. So having had a positive mentor experience, that then propelled your interest in mentoring other people who have
Absolutely.
been through similar experiences as well.
Right. And so I look to, not just youth who've been in foster care, but just teenagers. If I can be of service to them and share my story and just let them know that, hey, you're not alone. Because sometimes you need to know that somebody understands what you're going through.
And somebody has been through a similar experience and has overcome that challenge.
Absolutely.
And are thriving in a way. We oftentimes see smiling faces on social media. We look on different people's pages. We look at the news. And I mean, the news is not very positive right now. But I mean, there are different stories that we look at. And then it sort of pushes us within, and we think that our struggle is unique,
right,
when there are other people out there who have been through similar challenges that we have faced. And so you're working on a book now. Tell me a bit about that book.
So I'm working.
You had a book before as well.
So I've co-written 2 books.
Okay.
So the first one was The Art of Activation, which I did with Lucinda Cross and a few other authors. So it's basically, it's my story, and I felt like it was like my introduction to the world. So I'm very proud of that project. Not too long after that, I collaborated with a few other women on Women Rising Volume 2, which is another...
Women Rising Volume 2. I love that title.
Isn't it powerful?
Yeah, very powerful.
Yes.
Especially now that we have all of the, positive stories that are coming out about women. So tell me about this Women Rising.
So Women Rising 2 was, I worked with Chantel Adams, who was one of my coaches, my speaking coach at one point. And so after completing a program with her, she said, hey, do you want to be a part of this book project? I was like, hey, why not? Right. So it's another version of my story, different from The Art of Activation. Okay. But I realized that being on this journey, I want to talk about healing and how to be possible. Like, I love transformational work. I'm all about transformational work and how to be positive and how to be possible. So this book that I'm currently working on right now, it's all about how to be possible.
What do you mean, how to be possible? How to
So
navigate the possibilities that exist
exactly,
out there?
absolutely. So how do you become a possibility, right?
Oh,
So
wow.
because I was in the foster care system, I have a story to share. I have lessons to share, right? But I
Right.
have to be able to let go of the anger and let go of the pain in order to see what's possible in front of me. You're a possibility. I'm a possibility. That's why we're standing here. This is why you have this awesome show, right? Because you're showing people what is possible in the world when you choose to go after what it is that you want to create in the world, your vision.
Oh,
right?
wow. Very powerful. And when is that one coming out?
That should be out before the end of the year.
Oh, amazing.
So-
That I like that. It's such a powerful title.
Thank you.
How did you come up with that?
To be honest, I was just like, well, what do I want to create? What do I want to create? What looking back at my story and how everything has transpired, I feel like I'm a possibility. I'm choosing to be possible by using my story to inspire others, to support others.
And it's interesting that you say, what do I create? Like, you're always looking into creating possibilities.
Absolutely. Why not, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I feel like
And you mentioned earlier, you know, at 16 years old, you didn't know what possibilities were available,
Yeah, I was
and then
angry.
you told your story, and then you saw lots of possibilities.
Right.
And now it's like you're...
But it was definitely a transition, though, right? It didn't come easy because when I entered the foster care system, I was angry, right?
angry at yourself,
I
the
was
world.
angry at the world. I was angry at my parents. I couldn't see possibility at that time because I thought I was a victim. So it wasn't until maybe as I grew older and different opportunities started coming my way. Transformational Work came into my life about 2011, which I think is like amazing, right? It's opened up so many different doors, so many opportunities, and it's through this transformational work that I realized that I really can like be, do, and have anything that it is that I want in the world.
Be more, do more, and dream more.
Exactly. And like, why not have it all, right? I feel like we all have a gift that someone is waiting to experience in the world. And so why not, right?
Yeah, we have to find what it is that ignites our inner flame and then offer that to the world as well.
Absolutely.
And I think out of struggle emerges, the best products, the best,
Absolutely.
the most beautiful things as well. And you talked about earlier your journey with trust.
Yes.
And learning to trust others as
Right.
well. So tell me about how you got to that point where at the very heart of it, your parents are the people that you rely on for trust and for nurturing. And when that is taken away and then learning to trust others, tell me about how that journey came to fruition for you.
Well, I feel like, so you're right, trust, your parents are the foundation of how you operate in the world, right? But I also feel like at a certain point, as you become an adult, through different experiences, you kind of, well, at least for me, I had to learn how to trust myself. Because see, I've learned in my experience, when you learn and you know how to trust yourself, it's easier to learn how to trust others. Right? Trusting your intuition. Because at the end of the day, we really do have all the answers we need inside of us, right? And so, yes.
And you know what? This is echoed on a lot of shows. Many people say that everything exists within us. But I mean, that's a very loaded statement when you say that.
So when I say that, I mean, we have the answers. So you could call it intuition. We all have intuition. It's really a matter of trusting it, leaning on it, and knowing that you have the answers.
Yeah, and trusting yourself, like you said.
Absolutely.
As well.
I think with trust, that's where it starts. Trust starts with self, and I didn't know that until later on in life.
And trusting yourself helps you in overcoming fears as well and makes you hesitate less, no?
I think so. But it's hard to know or experience or be open to that when you've gone through so many horrible things in life.
Yes.
Right. So it's like, okay, this happened. Oh, I don't want to trust anymore. Oh, I can't trust certain type of men or certain type of people. That really comes with like the story and the beliefs that we've made up because of our experiences in life.
Yeah, and I think there are challenges and opportunities with that within that as
Absolutely.
well. I think that the more you learn to open yourself up to the world,
Right.
the more you see the world differently, and you are able to overcome whatever challenges that you may face in your life as well. And this is something that you talked about with the transformational work that you're doing.
Right.
So tell us a bit more about that transformational work.
Well, so it's hard to put in really words, transformational work. For me, so I can use my experience as far as the courses, how it started. So 2011, a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine came to me and was like, I know you want to write a book, you want to do this, you want to do that, but you're so scared. And, I was just living in fear, right?
Yeah, so it's about overcoming those fears. Still,
right.
Yes.
So I was introduced to this amazing organization called Momentum Education. And it was through their curriculum where I realized and learned that I really can do whatever it is that I want to do in this world, despite what has happened to me, right? And really learning that I don't have to be a victim about my circumstances. I create. I get to really lay out the vision and what it is that I want in all areas of my life, right?
And to outline possibility.
Absolutely. Like I just love possibility. Like I could talk about it all day, but we don't have that time. So so I have this saying that I love to share. He who is realistic does not live in possibility. Because sometimes you'll have conversations with people and they'll say, well, that doesn't sound realistic. You can't do that. Yes, you can. I feel like whatever we put our mind to, and we have the proper tools and we have proper guidance, whether it's our intuition, mentors, we can really create whatever it is that we want in this world.
Right.
And so for me with this transformational work, it allowed me to step outside of what was not possible and what society dictates as reality or the norms of society, which I do my best to not really be enrolled in that, because it's just going to limit me and what I'm looking to create.
Right, right. And I think another interesting thing as well is that, for women especially, we are often told what is not possible, what
Right.
we cannot achieve,
Absolutely.
what we cannot do. I mean, there are a lot of rules and regulations for women in general. So, so as a woman yourself who has been through quite an interesting life path that has taken you to this transformational work and the storytelling that you are doing, do you think there are sort of barriers that women face, particularly as motivational speakers, as authors, that are particular to them?
Well, I can't say that I've experienced that firsthand, but I have a few friends of mine who have experienced different situations where they feel like their voice wasn't as important as other
male motivational
right.
speakers as well.
But again, for me, I feel like I'm not saying that that may not be the case, but I feel like for me, I don't let that deter me for what it is that I'm looking to create.
Yeah. So, was there a particular woman in your life who served as, a guiding force to kind of ground you and help you on your path as well?
Well, I have several mother figures, but off the top of my head, my second foster mother, so I refer to her as Pumpkin, she was very instrumental in making sure that I was, I was going to go to school and I was going to become something, and, no elbows on the table. She really fed me with a lot of love and support and kind of just instilled values to this day that I still apply and use.
So she has.
She was my superhero.
So we have a lot of those sheroes that are
Absolutely.
that are oftentimes not
just the money
talked about.
Right. She was my second foster mother, and she's an example of everyone is not in it for the money. There are some awesome foster parents out there, some awesome foster homes out there, but unfortunately the media does not focus on that. It focuses on the negative. And you're a
positive outcome of the foster care
Yes.
system as well. And you actually recommend, you mentor younger people. You recommended a young American woman to come to our summit
Right.
in St. Lucia as well, who served as a wonderful speaker in addition to our group. So I think that there are a lot of positive storytelling that comes out of the foster care system.
Absolutely.
And you having had mentors, you now mentor the younger generation. You see the value of
Absolutely.
of storytelling, of positive storytelling.
I think
as well.
there's a lot of benefits to storytelling. One, people would know, well, hey, I'm not alone. Like, this happened to someone else. How was this person able to navigate from point A to point B? I think it cultivates inspiration, support.
Yeah.
There's just so many.
It's a support system. We
Absolutely.
all need that in life, and you've had that support system in the foster care system, as well as through your mentorship and through the transformational work that
Right.
you do. So, what is it other than the book? Do you see yourself as a television personality or anything like that in the
I'm
future?
open to what the universe has for me. To be honest, I am looking to teach some workshops.
Yeah, you're doing workshops now on mental,
Right. So just
sex,
just on possibility.
on possibility as well.
So, like, I remember doing a workshop at a foster care conference a couple of years ago about stepping into new possibilities. So I want to do more of that. I love to cook, so maybe cooking through healing. I'm not sure what that looks like right now, but just a couple of ideas off the top of my head.
Right. So your focus is then on the next generation, on having the younger generation have a space to be able to talk openly about the issues that affect them in their lives. Is that it?
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
and you do a lot of volunteer work
Yes,
as
I do.
well in that regard. So tell me a bit about that volunteer work.
So I also volunteer with One Simple Wish, which is another awesome organization that grants wishes for kids in the foster care system. So they'll have wish parties.
Right.
So it's basically a big party with the kids, and there's activities and face painting, and the best of all, the gifts that they get that they're surprised with usually at the end of each event.
So this organization, it grants wishes to people from the foster care system to be able to live lives of dignity and to be able to be
just to bring
inspired.
some joy.
Bring some joy. Okay.
Absolutely. So those are one of my favorite organizations, and so any organization that's geared towards supporting youth in foster care or those who have aged out, I'm always a yes to.
Right. And so I mean, to come to that point at which you took your story and said, this story can inspire other people. We can say that, but then taking action towards,
Right.
having that happen.
Right.
Have you always been a person who thinks of something and then creates and then takes action on it?
To be honest, no.
Yeah, this is
So
so this
I
shows,
was
this
always-
highlights exactly.
Right.
Tell us about
So
that.
I was always afraid. I was ashamed of my story. There were so many different feelings that weren't serving me when I was younger. So it wasn't until I went through this transformational process where I was like, okay, you know what? I can really do whatever it is that I put my mind to, right? And so they say if you want to make God laugh, share your plan, right?
That's funny.
So I can plan till the cows come home, but if it's not God's plan, it's not God's plan. But learning how to be flexible inside of the plan. So I can say, okay, I'm gonna write a book, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And it may not happen the way I think it's gonna happen, but trusting and knowing that it's going to happen. So for me, after going through this process and doing this curriculum at Momentum Education, it gave me the confidence and the tools to know that I can create whatever it is that I want. And it may not look the way I think it's going to look, but I'm going to get the end result.
And you touched on something extremely important, that is confidence. And confidence building is the, crux of everything that we do.
Right.
In order to be able to put anything out there,
Right.
whether it's a product, whether you're an entrepreneur, or whether it's your story,
Right.
whether you're trying to motivate others, we first conquer those fears, and we have to have confidence as well in ourselves.
Absolutely. I think that part of that is self-love, an acceptance of self, right? And so for me,
But that's very tough, because you've had a very tough life as well.
Right.
I mean, for most of us, self-love, when we have these images saying we should be this way, we should be that way, getting down to that level where we actually love ourselves is very difficult as well.
I hear you. Absolutely. But it's possible.
Like your book would say.
So despite everything that has happened, I had to kind of be on this path of self-acceptance, loving who I am, despite everything that I've been told. Because, I mean, when I was young, it was always, I was told I was stupid and dumb like my mother. I was ugly like her, and no man was ever going to want me. I mean, sometimes emotional abuse can be just as bad as physical abuse. And these,
it lives with you
Absolutely.
for the rest of your lives. The
Absolutely.
scars of physical abuse may heal, but
Right.
the emotional abuse goes on for the entirety of your life cycle.
it could go on until you choose to make a different belief about yourself, a different idea of who you are. It's all about like recreating self, like who are you, reinventing yourself and knowing, okay, well, no, I'm powerful and I'm beautiful and I'm giving and I'm this, right? Kind of just feeding like positive affirmations if you have, right?
Right.
So yeah, not easy, but definitely doable, definitely possible if you have the proper tools, the proper people that are surrounding you to help you navigate through that.
And there are a lot of services that are available to assist people as well in this regard, and just being aware of them and taking advantage of
Absolutely.
the opportunities that are and the possibilities that are open to you as well.
Absolutely.
I think what we all do is we navigate to the negative, because it's that story that we're
Absolutely,
used to.
right.
But trying on a daily basis to say, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. I can't control all of that.
Right.
What I can control is my reaction to it.
Absolutely.
And trying very hard to then focus on, take the lesson from each experience, which is part of the transformational work that you,
Exactly.
that you do as well.
And that's just life in general. Things will happen to us, and at the end of the day, it serves us in the sense of there's something there that is to be learned. Every situation is here to teach us something, right? So,
But it's so easy to play the victim. No?
of course, yeah, I played it for so many years. But there comes a point where, okay, so where and when do you take responsibility for some of the things that have occurred, right?
But that's a growth process. It's not so easy to take responsibility.
I
I mean, taking responsibility.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. So how did you do that?
I think honestly, taking these workshops, and it helped me to really dig deep in myself and think, okay, well, this has happened. How do I let go, divorce victimhood, and marry responsibility, right? So it was definitely a process, but I feel like life is so much sweeter now because I get to take responsibility and look at how I've created certain things in my life, or all things in my life, and see, okay, well, because the great thing about creation, if you don't like what you created, you can create something new.
Yeah, you can tell a different story. You can
Exactly.
do something new each time.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's the part that you can control. You can't control what other people say to you.
Right.
What you can, of course you can control your reaction to it, but you can also tell yourself a different story
Absolutely.
as well. You can drive
It's
your
all,
own.
I call it the mind chatter.
Ah, the
So-
mindset. Tell me about that.
The mind chatter is always trying to take over and tell you things that are not true, false beliefs. And sometimes you just have to just
It's
calm
the
it down.
ego.
Absolutely. And you just have to just take a moment, take a deep breath, and think about, okay, well, what's really going on
Why
in
is
this
it
moment?
that I'm...
Why am I thinking this? Where is this coming from? What is coming up, you know?
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, sometimes people say this takes a lot of time to ask ourselves these questions because we're all in the pursuit of happiness.
Absolutely.
We're all searching for something to make our lives better, and, just be happier individuals. And so taking the time sometimes to pause and to reflect on the reasoning behind why you're telling yourself these negative things,
right.
It actually helps you in the long run live, because you then become self-aware. Self-care is very important, like you mentioned earlier.
And awareness is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, because and to have those conversations that are tough to have as well. I think while we're all trying to work on ourselves and the way that we react to the messaging that is coming out from the world or what is happening around us, we actually we're afraid to ask other people questions,
right,
about who we are and how to be better people,
right.
how can we be more humanistic towards each other,
right.
We refrain back a lot. No,
I think so. I mean, that kind of reminds me when I was younger and I would be embarrassed to ask certain questions because I thought it was silly or it sounded stupid. And so I think once people really let go of, and then rejection, nobody wants to be rejected, right? So there's like all these different variables that go into that. But I feel like once people can just let go of the fear of whatever they've made up, like so many things will be able to open up to them.
And I think you bring up a very important point, and that is that of rejection. So in everything, whether it's for a job opportunity for our millennial audience who is watching, or whether it is for to ask for a promotion or to ask for women in the workplace to ask for a pay raise, whatever it is that we are afraid to ask the questions for, the fear of rejection. But that fear actually torments us more so than asking the question and getting a response.
True.
Because the not knowing actually tortures you more, no?
Yeah, but so I love this saying, rejection is God's protection, right? So at the end of the day, we build up this story and this debilitating feeling because, oh my God, we don't want to ask because of rejection. But yet you don't even know what the outcome is going to be.
Yeah. I mean, there are two outcomes. There's a yes
and
or
there's a no.
But
either way, it's okay.
It's okay. Either way, it's a yes or a no. But at least you introduced the question.
Right.
At least you asked for that possibility.
Right.
You opened yourself up to possibility.
Right.
If you don't ask the question, you have
won't know.
No possibility.
Right.
So I think that fear to not ask a question is more debilitating than asking the question, because even though it's a no, I mean, it's tough to hear a no.
Absolutely.
But it's a relief that you already know. You can have closure on whatever that issue is because you know that it's a no.
Right.
And then you can find another way to get to that yes later on. No?
Yeah, I hear you. Absolutely. At the end of the day, we have nothing to lose, right? And so life is also about being risk-taking and courageous and just going for it, right? And so I'm sure, I mean, I'm not a celebrity, but I'm sure celebrities, it wasn't an easy path for them to get to where they are now, right? And I'm sure they heard a couple of no's before they got that yes.
You hear those stories all the time of people who have experienced tremendous failure, who have experienced many people and continue to experience many no's.
Right.
But they don't focus on the no's. What you need to focus on is on those possibilities, those yeses, and what you can do.
Exactly.
With what you have. And I think you bring up something very important throughout this discussion. You brought up the fact that, you did a lot of journeys within. You did a lot of journeys within to find out who you are, what you loved, and you realized that you wanted to help other people who were in a similar circumstance as you as well.
Right.
And with that journey, you are able on a regular basis to help and change the lives and transform the lives of many people as well. How does it feel to be a change maker?
To be honest, I don't know if I consider myself a change maker. I kind of like that, but
Well, I think
definitely,
we're all change makers if we're able to make a change in someone's life. The moment at which you are able to make someone else's life better, you are creating change. I think when we think about creating change, we focus on making big changes, but don't realize how much the small changes then add up to big changes.
This is
so
true.
In that regard, you are a change maker.
Oh, thank you.
You volunteer a lot. You
Yes.
do a lot for the foster care community. You're a motivational speaker. So
I feel like it's my responsibility to do that. I've gone through certain situations in life, and so I feel like I am supposed to use these experiences to be able to help others. So for me, I feel like it's a responsibility. Like yes, I choose. It's a choice. Absolutely, but the way I view it, I get to do this. I get to share my story. I get to support others who've been in similar situations and do the best I can to support others.
yeah, and supporting others is very important as well because, I mean, like you said earlier, it takes a village.
And I feel like that's what we're here. I feel like we're here to support each other through this journey called life.
Yeah, yeah. And you do that beautifully by supporting other people as well. So what advice would you give to your former self?
Stop worrying. In the end, everything is going to be okay.
Yeah, because you are a testament to that. You are a wonderful person. You've overcome a lot of challenges. You've worked through the corporate world and had a lot of corporate success in your regard. And now you are, you have been throughout the time transforming people's lives. But now you are on a journey towards doing that on a wider scale. And I commend you and thank you for that.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for joining us today. Pam has to leave us today, and I wanted to thank her for joining us. But we have a former guest of ours, Katliss Kramer, who has an album and a video launching tomorrow. So we're going to play a live performance and teaser from what you will experience from Katliss Kramer tomorrow while we wait to bring on our other guest.
This song, because I love Wonderland. So hey, it's called Wonderland. Who says I didn't go down the rabbit hole? Who says, well, I didn't see what I saw? No, and who says, well, I don't believe in anything? Well, not me, not me, not me. Who says I can't go back to Wonderland? And who says it's all in my head? And who says I can't
thank you so much for that. And so check out Kat Liz Kramer's Wonderland. Our second guest with us today is Sandra Garcia Lowry.
Yes.
And Sandra is a marketing guru, I say.
Thank you.
Because she teaches us how to brand ourselves, that messaging that we put out to the world, and you do that as well with businesses.
Yes, so I do it for individuals, I do it for nonprofits. Yeah, whoever is in need of elevating their brands, I love to talk to them.
So what is it that drove you? I mean, you just looking at you emanate happiness and a doer. So what is it that drove you towards this, career in branding?
Yeah. So two things. So first I would say passion and purpose, but it took me time to discover that this was a passion, and I feel like something that's very purposeful and intentional for me. But also I, at this point in time, have an 11-year career, or I had, in corporate sales and marketing. So I worked with some big, well-known media companies. So started my career at Time Warner. From there, I went on to CNN Money, then I went on to People.com, then went back to Time Warner, and lastly, I was at Clear Channel. So I spent a lot of time with big brands doing sales and marketing, and I love it. I realized that I love it, but I realized that I felt really restricted doing it for an organization, and I just wanted more flexibility to be able to work on the projects that I loved. So I decided to just branch out and do it on my own.
And having more of a choice as well in the content that you put out and what you worked with as well. What inspired this journey? Was there a particular family member that was in sales and marketing, or what inspired you down this path?
No, so this was not a clear path. This was just like self-discovery at every point of the way. So I started off in college, I was pre-med neuroscience.
Oh wow, pre-med neuroscience.
I was crazy. It sounded good, but then also I come from an immigrant family. And coming from an immigrant family, my sister was supposed to be a lawyer and I was supposed to be the doctor.
Ah, yeah, that typical, lawyer, doctor, those are the typical paths that parents push for.
Right, they had our futures set out and planned out for us, but that's not what was to be for me. So I realized in college that I hated chemistry. I was miserable doing chemistry work. And I was like, okay, if I am going to have a career and I'm going to have a job that I'm going to sit at, there's no way that I can see myself doing this. And how can I even make it to med school? So I did a semester off campus and I did a full-time internship at an event planning company, special events and PR. And that's where I fell in love with the world of like kind of media entertainment, because we were pitching to media companies and like the broadcast studios. And from there, I went on to an internship at VH1. And from there, the love for media and entertainment just kind of like flourished. Yes. And from there, I started off in sales, realized I didn't like sales. Then I got into marketing. Then I got into digital marketing. So it was just a journey of self-discovery, like along that.
And trying different things as well to be able, because you knew at that point when you got exposed through the internship, you knew you were interested in PR and marketing, but you didn't exactly know what niche you wanted to pursue. So you had to take a different road to try different things in the meantime as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also I was interning at a small agency, and I realized that after I started my internship at VH1 that I actually like this corporate world a little bit better. So at an agency, it was maybe like 10 people big. And I realized, you know what, that's cool, but I'm a people person. I love interacting with people.
Right.
And at a larger corporation, you're able to mix and mingle and also just learn about what other people are doing, because each department can be about like 15 to 20 people large.
Right. So you're interested in people and learning about who they are.
Right.
Through their stories as well. This is, in a way, we are all made up of the stories that we tell, and then you transform those into brands.
Right, exactly. And, you know, thinking about like storytelling and people and thinking about people behavior, that's what marketing is also. So influencing people behavior and even forecasting what you need to do in order to make an emotional connection with people so that they can take an action.
Right, and that's important. The emotional connection is the most important part as well. And if you are able, I mean, if you're able to allow people to connect on an emotional level, then you can get that product sold.
Right, exactly. And it's even making an emotional connection enough so that people can tune into a television show, so that people can make a purchase, so people can decide that that is the water I want to drink today. I want to drink Dasani versus whatever, Avion, or, you know, I want to go to this retailer versus that retailer to go get my swimsuit for the summer. So you need to make an emotional connection to drive people's decision making and help people decide where they spend their dollars ultimately.
So actually, your education in neuroscience actually just
It
like
did.
the study of the brain. Exactly, it helped you as well on this journey. In a way, you know, it's funny that we take different paths to get to where we need to be or where we want to be. But we learn everything that we take from each experience. It helps us into the next journey as well.
Right, exactly. It just wasn't that cookie cutter like expectation of like what you do with like a neuroscience like academic exactly learnings, but instead I went and made it my own, and I realized what I loved, and then I combined the two, and that was marketing.
What are the challenges you think that women, young women especially in your field, face? Do you think it's more difficult for young women in the marketing field?
I feel like marketing in general, and my background is in media marketing, so I'll speak to media marketing specifically. I feel like it's constantly evolving, it's constantly changing. We're very much in a digital world right now. There are all these different tools and ways that you can connect with an end consumer. You have tablets, you have mobiles, mobile phones, you have laptops, computers, you have TV screens. We live in such a connected world. I don't think it's just women. I think it's hard to keep up. Like,
in general,
how do you like keep people's attention? But from a women perspective, I think in general, I think women need to speak up. Women need to practice confidence, and just speaking up for themselves also, from, you know, being in the workplace and being able to work on the projects you actually are interested in working in, from asking for that promotion every year, asking for that raise every year, because guys are, so why can't we?
Yeah, and I love the way that you say that, because we don't have the confidence to ask for what it is that we want. And I think it's a way of thinking that we have been conditioned into, thinking that, you know, as a woman, our parents, depending on our society, molds us into a specific way of thinking that we shouldn't demand things.
Right, exactly. The cultural norms and, you know, gender norms of what it is to be a woman versus to be a man. But I'm definitely loving this like girl boss movement that's happening right now. But I definitely believe that women today need to practice their voice more. We are, but I feel like we need to do it some more.
And I think it's about simplifying messages as well. And you do that a lot. You simplify brand messaging so that people can connect more. I mean, Steve Jobs did it. He said, you know, here's to the doers, the change makers. And I think when you simplify those messages and you emotionally connect very directly, then people get it more. And I think this is something that simplistic thinking. Do you think it's easier for women? I mean, for men than it is for women?
Not necessarily. I think we just think a little bit differently. I don't know. I can't say that it's simpler or it's something that men do a lot easier than women. But and honestly, I see more women in marketing positions than I do see men, because to a certain degree, it's also kind of like a creative position. And not too sure if that's just in media. and entertainment, or if that's across the board, because once you get to kind of like marketing analytics, then you see more men there because it has to do with numbers. But I think when you look into creative marketing, you see more women there.
And why do you think that, you know, when it has to do with the numbers, that, you know, there aren't very many? I mean, we have women astronauts, we have women mathematicians as well. In the media world, why do you think that there is that, you know, it's more pervasive that there is men in that?
Well, one, representation matters. So women go to where they feel a little bit more comfortable, secure, comfortable to be themselves.
Yeah.
So I worked at people.com, for example. People.com is a celebrity-inspired magazine. It covers on fashion, beauty, celebrity culture. You see a lot of women there, you know? So you tend to go to places, one, where the interest is natural, but then you also go to a place where it's comfortable. You know, you're speaking on a topic that you're comfortable about, and I feel like
you're knowledgeable about as well.
And you're knowledgeable about, yeah.
So you said you do personal branding as well. So I mean, you do these workshops. So if you were to rebrand, like the way that the way that I dress right now, do you think that represents the brand? If you were to rebrand, what would that process start with?
You mentioned Steve Jobs, right? So Steve Jobs is known to be on stage wearing his custom or his traditional black
and
turtleneck.
blue jeans. Yeah.
Exactly. We know Steve Jobs for wearing that turtleneck and those jeans on stage. That was part of his brand. That is when we think Steve Jobs, we remember him for what he wore, and that's part of branding. So
that's amazing.
Branding is not only so much what you're doing and, you know, what your logo looks like and what the color of your logo is and what your typography is, although people forget that.
Yeah, because we think that the colors of the logos and all of these things matter.
Yeah, but then it's also presentation. How do you present yourself? Because then, you know, that's also a reflection of your business.
Right.
And then also now one thing that I work on with clients is how does your personal brand match your business brand? Because your personal brand can help drive leads and drive sales for your actual business as well. So right now we're engaging and you're engaging with me. Folks are watching this, you know, if someone, you know, feels an emotional connection, they might be interested in learning more about my business. But that's by me presenting me, myself, and my personal brand.
The authentic version of who you are.
Yes.
Right. And so that matters as well, who we are, being authentic versions of ourselves, but realizing as well the brand that we are affects the brand that our business is, and do those brands match.
Right.
So when you have instances where the personal brand doesn't match the business brand, how do you navigate within those?
Then maybe you should be separate. Sometimes it should just be separate. I don't think it can help to be aligned, but I don't necessarily think that your personal brand and your business brand need to always be completely aligned. There's so many companies who you have no idea who the CEO is. But you have other companies who the CEO, they're the face. Or sometimes you have a marketing person who is the face of the organization. So I think it depends. Like every company, organization needs to be structured a little bit differently. It's not a cookie cutter, one solution for everyone. Yeah.
So do you prefer doing personal branding or branding for businesses? You said you did it in a corporate structure, and then you felt that, you know, you weren't doing managing as much as you wanted to get done. So you are able now to do that in your personal capacity, running your own business. Do you prefer doing it in a business setting for people or in a business setting?
It depends. And I feel like having my own business, I'm able to pick and choose what I want to do. So I can work with a beauty business for 2 months, help them structure their roadmap, their strategy, how they're going to execute and elevate and get in front of their end consumer. I can do that for 2 months. And then I can decide I want to work with a professional athlete for a month. And I want to help you figure out how to best portray yourself outside of just being an athlete. So that's an example. I like them both. And I feel like I like the creativity of being able to pick and choose. Whereas when you're in organizational structure, you have to do work on the business that's
work
coming
in the
to
confines.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So what is it that's, I mean, you help people harness their creativity. What is it that sparks your creativity?
Helping other people. So the name of my company is Encounter Marketing and Public Relations, and simply because I help people encounter their full marketing potential. And that for me is very purposeful. And that is why I became an entrepreneur, because I wanted to be very purposeful and intentional about the work that I'm doing and also the people that I'm working with. So that to me instills and drives creativity, just being able to work with other people and help them just reach their full potential.
And you derive a lot of pleasure from seeing the impact that you have in other people's lives as well. Not only when you take on a project, it's like you're transforming a business or a person. You play an important role in transforming people and relating their stories to the world in a digestible manner as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's impactful on so many different levels. So for me, yes, it's growth because I'm able to build a business. But as I build my business, I'm building my business by helping other people build their business. And by helping other people build their business, they're able to potentially employ other individuals. They're potentially able to, you know, sustain and support their family. So it's far beyond just me and my company. It's me helping other people.
And your work has a tremendous social impact in that way as well. You focus on socially impacting other people so that they can transform the lives of others as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So so your innovation is sparked then through just knowing that you can help other people. So what is that process like? For example, let's say you have a new product to market. Do you listen to music? What is it that you know inspires you a little bit in the creative process?
I read a lot. I read a lot of trade articles, but then I also have always said I think of myself as a consumer first. So I think where a lot of big companies have gone wrong is that they've maybe been stuck in their bubbles and not have thought about the consumer and how people are actually consuming.
The end user.
Exactly. So if you know that people are listening to iPods and iPads, like, why are you still selling CDs? You know, but more than anything, looking at how I consume information, entertainment, how do the people around me consume information and entertainment, the generations that are coming up behind us, Gen Z, how are they interacting? You know, they're the first generation to be born with just knowing to swipe whenever they see an actual device. They know what to do. So how do you market to your end consumer? Who is your audience? And I think for me, that's how I begin to shape and begin to figure out how to advise someone in a business on what to do.
Yeah, and I think we live, like you said, we live, why are you making CDs if, you know, if people are not listening to that anymore? But I think it's so difficult for something that is, you know, an established business to come from doing something for such a long time to break out of, you know, that market, and it then presents a confusion to them. Like even what we're doing now, IRL, it's a new technology where you interact directly with the guests as well, and trying to navigate that as well. You know, just being able to be prepared for this century and then the now. That's very difficult. How do you advise, you know, like big companies like that to be able to get onto those platforms when they're not used to them? Yeah,
well, I just think overall, like especially because I spend a lot of my time at big companies, they just need to be more flexible, more nimble, be able to pivot, be able to experiment without the layers of hierarchy and the layers of approval. So what I loved, and I keep mentioning people, but what I loved about my time there is that we were able to ideate, come up with ideas, and go and run and test. And if it doesn't work, try something else.
But at least they took the chance to be able to go and do that.
Yes, exactly. Whereas at like bigger companies, you have to go through, you know, a sponsor, a senior level person. And of course, that's great because you need checks and balances. But at the same time, it can't take 6 months to make a decision because in 6 months, that idea is stale already.
Right, exactly. Because we live in a more fast-paced world where, you know, people have to consume things in 15 characters or less. And, and so everything is changing quite rapidly, as you said. So when those big companies are afraid to take risks, then the bigger risk the bigger impact is that they lose out and they lose billions of dollars within a 6-month period by the time their product comes to market as well.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
And so you help them to navigate those types of difficulties.
And you know, that's another part of what I love about working with smaller companies. You're able to move faster. You're able to get things done faster. You don't have to wait a month, you know, for the idea to be approved and then to figure out how to execute. You have an idea, you can get going, and you can stumble along the way, make all the mistakes you can possibly make, and then figure it out.
Right, and I think that's what is coming up, that people don't realize that within those mistakes, you learn what to do next. You learn in doing, not so much. It's okay to theorize and think in your boardroom, you know, what should we do for this problem? But actually, you learn more in actually testing the product, as you so eloquently pointed out as well.
Yep.
And so when it comes to, you know, in a world where, like we said, you know, social media, where you have to navigate complex issues in 15 characters or less. Does that, you know, prove as a benefit or a challenge in your industry?
I feel like, if anything, it challenges people to get creative and be creative and to keep it simple. So, me personally, long emails are annoying to me because who has time to read long emails? Keep it simple, get straight to the point, be very direct. And I don't think it's a disadvantage. If anything, I think it's great in terms of allowing people to get very direct and specific about what it is that they're ultimately looking to communicate. And the reality is that that's advertisement and that's marketing. Like, you never see an advertisement with like 2 paragraphs. No.
Right, exactly.
5 words.
And being able to simplify messages is quite tough as well, no?
It's tough. It's hard. Like, what are those 5 words that are going to evoke an emotional connection and drive someone to take action to buy your product?
Right.
It's hard. That's a skill. So if anything, being able to minimize your, you know, the number of words that you use to get something out there, that's creative.
Yeah, so it's actually a benefit for you as well. You notice that it restructures the way that people think, and it then allows, you know, to get away from all of the, you know, the bureaucracies and get down to the people that you are trying to reach as well. Because
exactly. I think it's great, but then where it gets dangerous is when people don't know how to actually write proper words because they're speaking in short terms or shortcuts and short language. So, like, you know, where are you? It's like WY, whatever.
Right.
So that's where it gets dangerous. But in terms of using just 15 characters or less, I think that's fine. But it's just when you don't know how to write a proper email or proper letter, that's when it's dangerous. You should just be able to do both.
Yeah, and you point out something extremely important in that regard as well. You find that today, with the millennial generation now taking part and being entrepreneurs and heading a lot of companies as well, you find a lot that within the email communication that it's not, when it comes down to for example, preparing preparing something to send to a company, something formal, then they are not able to do that as well. So how do you navigate that then when someone is so used to the 15 characters or less, and then being able to do a proper proposal where it requires 15 pages, for example? That's just education. Like, in college, you still need to write papers. Like, you're not submitting a paper in 15 characters or less. So but you still find in the email communications that, I mean, the New York Times did an article about this, like, you know, top managers no longer know how to use proper grammar in email communications.
And you know what? I recently had a conversation about that, and it's also establishing, like, corporate culture or organizational culture, because now in organizations, people are using Slack, they're texting with their managers, they're using whatever instant messaging tool that it's good for, like, quick communication. So it's like, okay, if you feel comfortable enough to just text your boss, to Slack your boss, in just, you know, a few quick words, then you think you can do that via email also, but it's a completely different platform. But I think it's for each organization to just set the expectation for like what's proper and what's not, and even for managers to correct their employees when something is kind of like not on point.
And I think that goes a lot with brands as well, like bigger brands in their email communications, where you know, sometimes people communicate and there's not the you know, dear or even a hello or how to end the email, so there's no beginning and ending, and so when you're a big multinational company that works in different companies in different countries as well, navigating those you know, subtleties becomes difficult, especially for the millennial generation. No?
And you know, big companies have communication departments. They have marketing communications departments that a lot of times put together those communications for them. But when you're a small business, you are that communications department. You know, you are that corporate marketing, you are that PR, you are that finance, you are that accounting department, you're that everything. So it's just knowing like the proper use of language and knowing who the end recipient is, so that it can be addressed to them, whether it needs to be formal, a little bit casual. So yeah, it's just kind of knowing your audience, like, you know, all around.
Yeah. And I think you do that quite beautifully. You actually you have a personal branding workshop happening in New York City this week.
Yes.
So Gabe will put that up, the flyer up for the audience. So tell us a bit about this this personal branding workshop that you have.
Yes.
Plan, position, and get noticed.
Yes.
A personal branding power hour and mixer. And tell us why that's important to be able to mix and connect at workshops like these.
Yeah, so one, there's so many people who have an entrepreneurial spirit right now. And there's so many people with side hustles. So like you have photographers, you have bloggers, you have designers, people who are just like pursuing passions, but people pursue the love of the passion and the love of the work that they do. So if you're a photographer, you focus on photography, but you forget that you also need to brand and plan and position yourself so that you can ultimately get noticed and book clients. So that's what the workshop is all about. So helping people properly plan how to present themselves so that they can get the business that they're looking for. And that can be as simple as, do you have social media accounts? Like, what does that image look like? And is it consistent with the image that you have across all your social media accounts?
They have to be consistent.
Well, you want people to remember and recognize you. We remember Steve Jobs for the turtleneck.
Yeah, you mentioned. It sounds very simple, but we don't think about those elements, which are very important as well.
Or even your headshot. Like, I have blonde hair right now, so my headshot on LinkedIn should not be a photo of me with like red hair or dark hair, because that is not representative of who I am.
So you have to keep changing that as well.
Right, exactly. Just being present or like mindful of your brand. And then also in terms of like, you know, now in this connected world. So if you have a handle on Instagram, is the handle the same as that on Twitter? So that if people are looking for you on different platforms, they can easily find you and locate you. But it's not confusion, and you have different identities and personalities on, you know, whatever platform you're on.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, so how did you learn all of these things?
Well, I think self-taught, one, but then also being able to advise these, you know, big brands also. So like being able to advise some of the big tech companies, the automotive companies, beauty companies on different strategies that they can use, and even putting together, you know, white papers and like brochures while I was on a corporate marketing team for what are things that you need to be mindful of when you're presenting your company. Like, make sure your website is easy to find, you know, make sure that your website is optimized for mobile. Most people are using their mobile phones. If your website on mobile looks like your website on desktop, it's confusing and it's maybe hard to read because the text is small. So just making sure that things are optimized for the platform that they're meant to be seen on.
And so you helped from conception to execution?
Right. So ideation to formatting to planning to road mapping. If you have a year-long plan, what does that plan look like in January? What is that messaging that you're sharing with your end consumer in January versus in, say, May, you know, Mother's Day just passed. So if you're a florist, then your messaging will be different around Mother's Day versus Valentine's Day. So how do you plan out for the entire year? And how do you plan out for like those months where it's not so top of mind for someone to go to the florist, you know? Graduation season is now, so make sure people are buying those flowers. But what about in August? Like, what's really happening in August, you know? Maybe you need to do a promotion. Maybe, you know, buy, you know, whatever, a package of flowers, get a second one half off, or, you know, every Wednesday come in and, you know, get flowers 50% off. So just getting creative about messaging and tactics for driving sales.
Yeah, so basically, in every aspect of the planning process, innovation and creativity is important as well.
All the way, yeah.
And I think for you it comes very easly, but then for a small business that is not used to doing that, when you help them to think in this way, do you have to, how do you get them to change their mindsets, for example?
It's not always like changing mindset, but like educating. So
I like that.
Yeah, you know, asking questions like, what have you been doing? And have you considered this? And then it's also preparing people to be able to sustain themselves.
Right.
Because I cannot consult for 20 different companies at the same time. I'm only one person.
Exactly.
And I still need to manage and do the marketing and the branding for myself and my company as well. So I have a roadmap template, which is basically a year. This is what your year looks like. What do you want to accomplish, and what do you want to achieve each month?
Right.
And what's the strategy? How are you going to reach people each month doing this thing? You know, is it email marketing? Is it social media marketing? Is it, you know, grassroots? Is it in person? Like, how are you doing that? Is it cross collaboration with other like companies?
Right.
If you're that like florist, wedding season, that's a big thing, you know?
Yeah.
Are you collaborating with photographers or venues in order to make sure that people are thinking of your company, whether it has to do with like a seasonality, which can be Valentine's Day or Mother's Day, but then also other business opportunities like a big gala or a wedding.
Right. And for example, for organizations that are not selling a product but rather are doing social impact work, then making sure that the events that they have planned for the year are get enough marketing, and what is that process like for you when it's not a product but an actual organization that does social impact work?
Yeah, and it could be service driven. If it's service driven, who's your audience, and is your audience consistent and the same throughout the year? Is your audience giving at the end of the year? If they're giving at the end of the year, how do you capture their attention, and how do you make sure they're not giving to another organization? You probably need to engage them in the beginning of the year and not just at the end of the year when you're asking for money.
Right.
So that's also donor engagement, you know, hosting events. You know, there's client appreciations or donor appreciation events. You can plan a happy hour to make sure that people feel appreciated. So yeah, there are just so many different tactics, not just for products that are trying to be sold, but people who are trying to also sell a service. Right. So if you're a CPA and you have a tax business, it's not just about you making all the money that you could potentially make from January to April, but how do you sustain yourself throughout the rest of the year as well?
Right, exactly. And you bring up an important point in that sustaining yourself and making that business that you have be able to be relevant throughout the year as well.
And be on top of mind so that when tax season comes back around, people think of you.
Right, exactly. And so you help them in every aspect of the process in thinking about how to take that brand that you have and elevate it, basically.
Yeah, from beginning to end. So from beginning to building, like from creating potentially that logo to that language, what's your elevator pitch, to then what platforms are the best platforms for you to connect?
So
how are you going to engage? Full
it's
service.
A complete full service picture that you do for the companies.
Yes, full service. So you can think of me as your CMO.
Wow.
So I can be a remote CMO. For any company that needs marketing assistance.
Yeah, and I mean, as you explained quite beautifully on this show, like there are certain things that we think it's simple. It's very simple things that we can do to be able to get the brand out there. You mentioned making sure that there is, you know, consistency across the board with your messaging, and making sure that you are prepared for different events or whatever it is,
seasons,
exactly. And we don't even think about that. We always think like, we're told to think about that that one you know, that one event or that one thing, and so you concentrate on those things, but you know, planning out and analyzing the months where business is low. What can you do?
Yeah, the focus should not just be the service or the product, but how to actually connect with the people you want to buy that product or invest in your business.
Right, and exactly, and knowing what their trends are and what it is that
Their
their
behaviors
interested
are, yeah.
Exactly, their and then being able to cater to that.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh wow, yeah.
So knowing your end audience, your potential end consumer, you know, maybe you have a certain consumer set, but you're trying to pivot and change because you want people to want to continue to come back, but then you also want people to talk about your business or your product so that you get more business from other people. So yeah, there are just so many different strategies for like approaching your loyal existing customer and then also winning new business.
Right.
And that language would be different depending on the audience because they're not the same people.
And as you mentioned, you work a lot with millennials, with smaller businesses as well. So you know, the smaller the smaller businesses and entrepreneurs that are watching now can start thinking about those things, like making year plans, and they can contact you and you can tell them your website as well, and come to the mixer this week
exactly,
as
which is tomorrow.
Yeah.
So tomorrow there is going to be
At
a branding
Rose Hill.
power hour, exactly. And then from there, we're just going to mix and mingle so you can get to talk about your business and what you have going on with other people who are also there.
Yeah. So make sure you show up for that as well.
Yes.
Making sure that your personal brand reflects what it is that you need it to reflect, and also if you don't want your personal brand to mix with your business brand, Sandy can teach you how to do that as well.
Yeah, keep it separate.
Yeah, keep it separate and keep it simple.
Right.
I think is what you stress throughout as well.
Yeah, that's a good key takeaway. Keep it simple.
Keep it
Don't overcomplicate.
So how do you think that today we have a lot of youth who are, finishing university and college, and they don't know what to do next, for example. How do you think they can rechannel those energies into creating a brand that is marketable for the world that we currently live in today, or into, taking it on an entrepreneurial venture, for example?
Right, yeah. I think it's perfectly fine and okay to not have a clue about what it is that you want to do. Most of us don't. And I think we need to start to dabble, and then through that we begin to figure it out. But and I don't know what the stats are exactly right now, but it's known that today you'll have several different careers before it's time for retirement. But what I would recommend is to think about how you spend your time. What are you spending your time doing? Are you listening to music? Are you, I don't know, people have hobbies. What are your hobbies? And tap into that.
Yeah, tapping into those hobbies and finding a way to find your passion and monetize that passion as well.
Yeah.
And like you highlighted quite eloquently, I think it's okay to not know.
Right.
It's okay.
Right.
Because, when I went to college, for example, I didn't know what I wanted to, I knew that I wanted to go into a particular field, but I started off majoring in one thing and came out majoring in another.
Exactly.
As did you as well.
Right, exactly.
You were majoring in something that you didn't want to do, and it didn't relate to the job that you are now undertaking and the job that you did directly after as well.
Yeah, I went to a liberal arts school, but I say that if you're not going to be a doctor, a lawyer, then it's okay to major, to explore, and your major does not determine what it is that you're going to do afterwards.
Yeah, and just take the leap. Try something new.
Yeah, try something new. And I was sitting in on a panel discussion a little while ago, and someone mentioned that the jobs of the future don't even exist right now. And, you know, I think about what my parents wanted for me. They wanted for me to be a doctor.
Right.
You know, so it's okay not to know, and it's okay to not kind of dwell or give into those expectations of what the world, your parents, the people around you want you to be, want you to do. Because what the money-making careers of the future may be, they don't even exist yet.
Yeah, you probably are at home trying to invent it right now.
Exactly, and that's fine. Plan it, create it, do it.
Yeah, I like that. Do
Yeah.
it. And I think that is something that is reminiscent of this generation, is doers. We are a generation of doers.
Doers
we don't,
and change makers.
doers and change makers. It doesn't matter if we do something that doesn't work out. We learn a lesson from that, and we are fear, like we don't take fear, we don't let fear guide us, you know. And so I think that's very important. You and the previous guest both highlighted that overcoming fear is quite, you know, it's easier than we think it is.
Well, once you put yourself in that position where you just have to deal with it. But of course, like, even for me, leaving the comforts of, you know, a 6-figure salary and, you know, the comforts of corporate America and health insurance and, you know, knowing there was coffee and, you know, snacks.
Right, of course.
You know, leaving all of that to just figuring out how I was going to get a check, you know, like, yeah, that's scary. It's scary, but it's just so much more fulfilling
and so much more fun. Look, you're happy at what you're doing. You're able to control what it is that you work on, and there's a joy in that.
Yes, I completely agree. It's just again, it's so much more purposeful. I feel much more intentional. You know, my day becomes what it is that I want it to be. It is not controlled by someone else's goals,
right?
And organization's goals
or bureaucracy,
right? It's mine, and it's what I want to make of it.
And I think that is a power. There's a power in that as well. You know, a power in putting out the messaging that you want to put out and doing the things that you want to do because you connect to it, because you believe in it. And it's very intentional in that way, like you said. And that's very important, to be intentional in your actions as well.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean you work less, because, you know, I
you work a lot more, probably.
You work so much more. I probably slept so much less in the last 2 months, but it's still, you know, I wouldn't change it at all.
Yeah, I think this is what people, like, you work hard regardless, you know, but when you work hard and you know you're doing it for yourself, it feels so fulfilling, because, you know, I mean, not for yourself only, but you're working on your own terms, I should say.
Yeah, exactly.
And you are able to make the impact, like you said, you are interested in changing people's lives. In your work, you are then creating opportunities for other people to create opportunities, and employ and change the lives of so many more people. And that for you is a lot more fulfilling, because you see it's more tangible for you.
Right, exactly. And, you know, I feel like emerging companies are also starting to figure that out and get it. So I'm not opposed to going back to corporate America. But if I were to go back, it would be to an organization that I feel like understands it and gets that people are dynamic.
Right.
And yes.
No. I think you hit that nail on the head, you know, because a lot of big organizations are just saying, you know, a lot of these people are eating our lunch, you know, what do we need to do? So there's a change process going on, and an adaptation process. And why that process happens, if those goals align with the ones that you have, you are open. And that's about adaptability as well.
It is, yeah. And reverse adaptability. Like, why are just employees adapting to the culture of an organization? Why are organizations not adapting to what the wave of tomorrow and of today is?
Right.
So, like, companies like Google, and I know everyone wants to work at Google, but they're, you know, I feel like they're a company that's doing a good job. I've never worked there, but for what I can see, and the people that I know that work there, they're able to still pursue their own personal passions and you kind of work harder for an organization that allows you to be purposeful.
Exactly. And you find that as well, because when you're working at an organization where you see that you're not appreciated, or your work is not appreciated, or your creativity is not, you know, harnessed, then you don't work as hard. But if you're a creative person, and we're in the wave of creativity now and innovation, and if you're that type of person and you're not able to do that in an environment, you actually, you perform less. The company suffers.
You do the bare minimum.
Yeah, you do the bare minimum.
I've been guilty of that. I'm like, I'm just going to do what I need to do. Please don't ask me for anything more, because I want to give that to my stuff.
Right.
Because I don't feel that appreciated here.
And then you realize that those emotional connections, like we talked about Steve Jobs and, you know, with Apple and being creative and having emotion, you know, into the picture. And reaching people on those emotions, because we have to realize we're all human beings and we're emotional beings in the end. And when companies then cater to that, then I mean, there's a lot of change and a lot of work can take place in this sphere as well, like you said.
Right. Yeah. And I, you know, I also lead up a local chapter of a nonprofit organization. And for me, it's important as a leader to know what motivates people. What motivates people, because that's how you get them to engage and to give of themselves.
Right.
And especially when you're talking about service-driven work, when people are just giving of their time.
Yeah.
Like I've worked, you know, I've been involved at nonprofits and organizations where I see people working so much harder than they would ever work for the job that actually pays them to pay their bills.
Right.
Because they care and they feel like people, and they're viewed as people and treated as people.
Yeah.
And not just someone who's helping to move the needle.
Exactly, and that's the important. That's what the bigger companies are trying to do now, to relate, to treat people as individuals and not just, you know, as driving a bottom line.
Right. Yeah. Not just an employee number.
Right.
Employee
exactly.
ID number.
Exactly, and that personal level, and like you pointed out quite eloquently, is that you see people working harder for positions for which they are not paid as much.
Yeah.
Just because they emotionally connect to not only the cause, but to the work and the environment and the culture of the organization as well. And you help companies realize this as well. Through your branding business, you help companies rebrand to this new environment that we are in. You help them navigate this notion of emotional IQ and emotional intelligence to be able to reach the consumer and do a better job at that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to the organization, we provide professional development and also career development support for multi-ethnicities in media and communications, because we ultimately want to see more diversity in senior level positions.
Yeah.
So with more diversity in senior level positions, you get diversity of thought, and you're also able to bring in a more diverse talent pool.
Exactly.
And I think it's also important to be able to manage and navigate, you know, how to advocate for diversity or even change in different organizations. And a lot of people just don't know what to do, how to do it. And then people end up feeling unhappy. So is being able to, you know, speak up, you know, and practice your voice, like we said in the beginning.
Voices matter.
Exactly, in order to help drive change.
Yeah, and I think this is having the voices, those diverse voices as part of the conversation changes the whole outset of the conversation. Because, you know, many people say, we don't understand how this is happening. And then you try to understand why they don't understand why this is happening. It's because the group that is making the decisions is one, you know, it's not diverse.
Right.
And so you don't have that diversity in opinions. And so then, of course, they are not going to connect to what exactly is happening and the change that is taking place as well.
And then that impacts retention.
Yeah.
You know, people don't feel like they're part of the culture and they leave.
Right.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of companies that are not Google are, you know, struggling with like retention also. Like, how do you keep top talent?
Yeah, top diverse talent.
Right.
Yeah, how it's not only about recruitment of you know, diverse professionals, but it's also creating a culture in which those diverse opinions and those diverse backgrounds are able to feel comfortable and feel like they are part of the picture.
Right, exactly.
As well,
yeah.
inclusion.
And you know, I call that internal marketing, because you're not just marketing to recruit and to get people to generate leads, but you also need to create some kind of loyalty, and marketing helps with loyalty, whether that's loyalty within your employees, with internal marketing, but also loyalty with your customers to get, you know, them to come back and support your business and to talk about your business positively, especially in this connected world where people leave reviews and, you know,
everywhere.
Love to share their opinions about hotels, about travels, on whatever.
Right.
So yeah, it's important to use marketing to also build loyalty.
Yeah, and be able to have your brand match that, you know, messaging as well.
Yeah.
Not only to recruit and to include the diverse people, but also to be able to have it in your brand messaging for your company as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's incredibly important work that you're doing. It's transformational.
Thank you.
How does it feel to be in this industry that is growing, and you know, you're on the edge of innovation? How does that feel?
I don't know. Like, I don't know that I think of it as I'm doing important work, or, you know, I'm doing, you know, like that I'm a change maker, or all of these other, you know, fun terms that people are using.
Right.
But I just feel like I'm doing what feels good to me.
And that's a change maker. You're doing what feels good to you because you are guided by these moral principles that then help other people. You see, this is the thing that people don't realize. Change makers don't oftentimes realize that they are changing people's lives.
Yeah.
You're changing people's perspectives, and you're opening them up to new worlds and to new possibilities as well.
Yeah.
And that is a change maker. You want to bring in diversity and inclusion into the, I mean, this is a lot.
Yeah.
You are basically changing up a structure and including people who would not have been included otherwise.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a lot of important work that you're doing. I'm sorry to put the heavy burden on your shoulder,
I mean,
but
you know,
you're doing a lot of important work as well.
I feel the social responsibility a lot. I definitely do. But I try not to focus on, like, you know, it as like, okay, I'm doing this because it's important work. I'm doing it because it's purposeful and intentional for me to do it. Yes, but I feel like once you focus on like the weight and the heavy weight, then, you know, that can be intimidating, and you know, that can feel like a lot of weight and pressure
on your shoulder.
Yes.
But I think you just focusing on keep doing it, what it is that you're doing, because then you're doing it authentically as well. As you mentioned earlier, it's very important to present an authentic version of yourself.
Yeah.
What you're doing it authentically, and making sure that whatever product or business that you take on, you're being authentic to your goals and your needs as well.
Yeah, and to yourself, because people read through the phony, and even like no one likes a hard sale. Like, I hate going into a retail location and I have that like salesperson who like
follows you around.
Yeah, like, stop force selling me. Like, you know, we are intelligent people, and we, you know, usually go in with an idea of what we want. We don't want someone force selling us, or like, you know, or someone who's just being phony or unauthentic. So for me, it's just important to like be myself.
And people, and exactly, and people see that, and people connect to your true selves. And don't be, and you highlighted that earlier, that, you know, don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid not only to take chances, but don't be afraid to be yourself.
Right. Yeah.
Which is very important. So what advice would you give to aspiring marketing strategists or PR enthusiasts who want to go into opening their own business? Like you said, you took a very big risk.
Yeah.
You left that comfortable six-figure salary and you leaped into doing something that you loved. So what advice would you be able to give to the younger generation who wants to, but who are a bit hesitant?
Well, definitely plan and prepare. plan, prepare, make sure that you're good and that you're set to do it. But at the end of the day, like, don't overthink and just do it.
Yeah.
Like, do not let perfection freeze you and not let you move forward. Just do it. Figure it out along the way.
Yeah,
Just get started and go.
And as we've learned, and through many people, like, don't be afraid of failure.
Yes.
Because you can learn a lesson from that as well.
Failure is moving forward, because then you know what not to do.
I love that.
Failure
is moving forward.
Right, exactly. Fail
I
forward.
love that. Yeah.
Fail forward.
Fail forward. Yeah. Steve Jobs failed quite a lot.
Yeah, of course.
You know, Bill Gates failed quite
And
a lot.
the Starbucks story,
Yeah,
like,
so many stories
how many
now that you
banks,
hear.
said no.
Right,
But you get that
exactly.
yes, and then you make it work.
Exactly. And you run with it. And just important to do. Important to take the leap and do it.
Yes. Plan, prepare. Don't leave your job right away. Use your job to fund your dreams.
Exactly.
And then fail forward.
Do that. Fail forward. Wow, you have those. You have all of those wonderful taglines. Fail forward.
Yes.
And you know what? Take the opportunities that are available.
Oh my God,
and walk
yes.
through open doors.
Yeah. And, be nice to people, be kind to people, and stay in touch with people.
And treat people the way you want to be treated.
You never know.
Because, you never know, for example, somebody that you yelled at on the street last week may be someone that you need in the future. So just try to not take out your anger on other people when you're going through things as well.
Right, exactly. Yeah, be kind to people.
Yeah. And I think that's very good for branding as well. Like,
oh yes, of course. It's your personal brand. How you treat people.
Right.
It's part of your personal brand, because that's how people remember you.
Exactly.
How you made them feel.
That's important.
Yep.
People
Emotional
may
connection.
not remember what you say, but they will always remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
So when you go into a meeting and you want to pitch something or ask for a raise for your boss, or maybe when you want to try a new idea, think about being an authentic version of yourself.
Right.
And think about how you are treating the people in the room, because people will remember how you made them feel. They may not remember your pitch,
Right. Yeah.
but they will remember how you made them feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also, when you're asking for that raise, like, be prepared.
Yeah.
Like, make sure you have kept a done list. People keep to-do lists, but people don't keep a done list.
Tell me about that. I like that
Keep
idea.
a done list of all of the things you've done and accomplished. And I think for overachievers like myself, sometimes that's important too, because you can start off the week and say, oh my gosh, I have this long list of things that I need to do. And then at the end of the week, you're like, what did I do this week? Or what did I do today? Keep a done list, because it's easier to forget all the things you've done than to keep track of the things
and
you
you
need to do.
criticize yourself for not having done anything.
Right.
But keeping
The reality,
a done
you've done
list,
so much,
it
yeah.
actually transforms your way of thinking as well.
Yeah. And like I say, practice your voice and ask for the things that you deserve, but also make sure you're worthy of those things in terms of you've kept track.
Right.
Don't just go in and ask blindly. Like, make sure you've kept track of all the things you accomplish and how they affect the company's bigger picture.
Right. So that done list then guides what it is that you need to ask for. You demonstrate through data that you deserve what it is that you are asking for as well.
It's quantifiable.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's very important, especially for younger people who don't tend to focus on, the things that they have accomplished. And sometimes they try to dim their light so that they can, not seem like they're trying to go too far within a company as well. And so keeping a done list is very important.
Yeah, and then also, the perception a lot is that millennials are very entitled.
Yes.
So to not come off entitled, like you're just asking for a promotion for the sake of asking for a promotion, quantify it and show proof.
Yeah.
This is why I deserve this.
And it's funny that you brought that up, that people think that about millennials. People also think about millennials that they are not able to maintain a thought for more than 5 minutes, so that they're quickly switching to the next thing. So they're not interested in things content that is of value. But the difference is that millennials are multitaskers.
Right.
So they are navigate through complex issues and content, they are always thinking about what is the next step, what is it that we can do about that, all of this content. And it's not that they're not interested in world affairs or in arts or in science or technology or engineering. It's that they are thinking, what can we do with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I am I'm so guilty of being that person with a short attention span. Like I process things quickly and then I'm ready to move on and let's go on to the next thing.
Right, exactly.
So I have definitely been that person in let me not say large meetings, but in meetings where I'm multitasking on my computer or on my phone because I get it, let's move on. Whereas like, you know, sometimes people can linger on a topic.
And you actually pointed that out earlier. Keep it
simple. Exactly.
And
keep it simple, very direct, and let's move on.
Exactly. Like you can say, we get the point in 15 minutes, like in 15 characters or less. Like we don't need an over explanation of something that you assume that we don't know. For example. Yeah, and I think that's excellent advice for the audience as well. And something important to end the show today on. The hour went by extremely quickly. Can you imagine? Like
this was fun. Let's do it again.
Yes, definitely. I would love to have you back on. Perhaps you can do like a power branding hour for our guests, and we can have some people over and see how that goes. And I think that because it's very important to be able to market that personal brand, whether it is for your CV, whatever it is, your company, your startup. I think that would be a wonderful idea. We would love to have you back on.
Let's do that. We're all trying to sell something, so let's do it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you guys need to come to the Branding and Power Mixer tomorrow at Rose Hill at 6:30 p.m.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you again, Sandra.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been quite a quick hour. This time passes quickly when you're having fun.
Yes, this was a girlfriend conversation. I loved it.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for joining us today. Until next time.